Hello everyone, and welcome back to another episode of Wheaton. That is what we're calling this series of City Skylines. It is going to be a little bit of a small town to start. I don't know how far we're going to be kind of taking this again, but so far enjoying the light kind of mods downloaded, enjoying kind of starting up something a little bit new with the Industries DLC. And really just having a little bit more of a relaxed time playing through on this save, and I really enjoy having the RICO kind of enabled and kind of filling in areas in a little bit more of a utilitarian fashion than just being 100% creative. So last episode we went ahead and laid out a bunch of the city streets. We worked on the first kind of farming industry area, and now we are going back in and doing what I said I didn't really want to do a whole lot of, which was hand placing everything. But can't help myself. Went ahead and downloaded a lot of kind of older style Main Street-esque kind of buildings here. A lot of kind of shop fronts, storefronts. I think a lot of this comes from the Brooklyn kind of asset pack that's out there. I forget who made it. It's been a while since I re-downloaded it, but I don't know. I don't think it's King Lino, but it might be someone else. Basically, most of the buildings that I use come from King Lino, so half the time I assume it's his, even though I think Brooklyn is someone else. Anyways, we are using, parking lots, things like that, to fill in a lot of these areas. Things that you don't notice, when you're just chilling out and going about your day, is just how many parking lots there are at every establishment. It's something that City Skylines doesn't really have much of. Of course, they have the default parking that comes with a lot of their kind of base utility buildings like elementary schools and things, but the amount of parking that a town really needs is so much higher than what the base game allows. So modding gonna play a decent role with that. And then also another interesting mod that I downloaded was a little bit more of a realistic time scale for things. You'll notice that even though I am using Plop the Growables and other mods to kind of just lay down items instantly, it's still building. And you'll also see down at the bottom left that the time is going pretty dang slow. We are using a more realistic time scale just to kind of, I think, portray the life cycle, the day-to-day-ness of a town a little bit more accurately. So what's going to happen is, I think how it works, based on my observation so far of it, is that between certain times, people will say go to work at 6 in the morning, between 8 in the morning, and they're allowed to use their car during this period, and they'll generally go to work and start simulating all that wonderful stuff. And then at a certain point, let's say noon, they'll kind of go to lunch, and so they're kind of start going to more commercial size for a little bit, and then eventually they'll return home. And right now it's like, almost 1 in the morning in the game. However, traffic is pretty much non-existent, and that's because I think the game is so far, how it handles this is, at least the mod will try and force the citizens to walk rather than drive, so that your traffic feels like it has kind of a morning rush hour, and then it kind of gets into the lunch rush hour, and then the 5 o'clock rush hour, and it kind of just starts dying down and fluctuates pretty realistically. Now, granted, Wheaton right now is still a really small town. In fact, it's not going to get much bigger than this in terms of population for a few episodes. There's a lot of RICO demand right now for housing. However, I'm trying to build this city up in sections, though we have no demand for commercial right now. I did demolish our main street for the most part, and now I have to kind of hand place it all back. And, you know, speeding up time to allow some of these buildings to kind of regrow. We're going to make a little pub near the edge of town over here by some, I guess, low commercial kind of shopping centers, right? They'll get their own small little parking lot, some outdoor tables. Again, I don't want to go too crazy with the details, the granular details, like, you know, alleyway boxes and like line markings for everything. It's just a little too much for me still to try and do that. But, you know, we are going to try and keep a little bit of that going forward in this series. Adding some parking lots behind these row of apartment buildings, and you'll notice what I'm kind of enjoying a lot of right now in the game is taking like a small home or a small kind of standard, almost vanilla kind of asset, and turning it into an apartment building by simply slamming them together. That's the thing Move It really does for you. Kind of allows kind of creative solutions for large sections of a town like this. These, you know, 3 apartment buildings, very similar in style. I wanted kind of this U shape. So we put the small single in the middle, and then we're gonna angle the 2 wings out there, and that's gonna create a nice kind of U shape for us. Did notice the parking lot kind of is in the back there. At this moment, my Prop It Up wasn't enabled to turn off these parking lots. So I kind of just widened it up, made a little bit of an alleyway so that people can kind of get into that back parking area. So, you know, the vehicles don't just constantly clip through them. It always kind of bugs me when vehicles kind of clip through buildings. It's something that I want to try and avoid as much as possible. But, you know, sometimes you can only do what you can in a lot of this. Here's some more of the homes kind of getting squished together to make kind of a residential, large kind of complex, you know, short, small yards, kind of just duplexes slammed together. Instead of using apartments, maybe this is a little bit more of a new development, and we'll throw some parking out back. Try and get these to squeeze in there, and just try and fill in a lot of these gaps. I want to try and keep the density relatively high, but also as believable as possible. Over here, it's always a good idea, in my opinion, to have the parking lot in front of a lot of these storefronts. For now, a lot of them are kind of in the back, kind of back street area, instead of front and center, so you can't just pull right off the main road there. You kind of have to wiggle your way through a back street first. It doesn't really feel all too accurate to me, but you know, kind of just mixing it up as best as we can as we progress through there. And, you know, maybe even upgrading a few new homes, make a couple offshoot kind of duplex structures. The problem with, by the way, doing this whole different time scale in the game is that, you know, when I do place down these buildings, they take a second to grow. And so it does slow down the process of me going through and laying out large sections at once. Because, you know, between 1 in the morning or say even to about 6 in the morning, none of these things really get built. So I can lay down a whole section of town. It's just, if it gets really late in the day, it doesn't build anything because the game's just like, everyone's home. You know, we're not going to build this, so you're just going to have to wait there, buddy. Putting some homes behind these commercial areas looked a little funky. Sometimes the sudden clash from kind of a medium density to a low density can be a little forced and a little rushed. So you have to kind of mind that when you are doing this. We also do want a few standalone kind of light commercial areas, like a little pizza place that I laid down over there by that small parking lot. Over here, we're just going to have a parking lot at the back side of those office buildings, and then also, you know, the one commercial building back there as well, and some apartments. So it's apartment kind of parking, but it's right there on the strip and pretty close Whenever you are using Move It, by the way, just a warning, if you guys do get heavily into kind of building your own neighborhoods or laying out a lot of structures, you do kind of run into the issue of putting structures too far away from a road, or a road is no longer registered to be close to the structure, and so the building starts to complain, and then you're kind of just like, oh, okay, I get it. We'll have to try and move this building around. Over here, a little bit of greenery just by this gas station. Wanted some empty lots as well. Wheaton may not be the kind of most prosperous area, right? It's going to be a little bit run down. It's going to be a little bit of an older kind of main street look to it. So you're going to get some abandoned lots, some buildings that might be there are kind of refurbished and maybe reused. Maybe they had an old factory. That's kind of the feeling that you get when you do go to kind of older downtown areas, where they'll have like, oh, this used to be a warehouse. We kind of demolished half of it and we kept half the building as like a commercial zone, and the brickwork just kind of abruptly ends and there's like a smooth concrete wall because it used to be a bigger factory, but they just had to put this wall down to kind of seal off the structure. Some nicer duplex buildings, and then we're going to get into a little bit more of a new-ish kind of apartment complex that's kind of going to the right over there. And then, at the end of the main drag, we're going to have some really old apartment buildings. You want the town to kind of feel like it has eras. So you're going to have like the rundown section, or a section that still is kind of original, maybe considered historic, and then a section that might be like, well, the city got some funds, we're gonna rework this area, try and clean it up a bit, and then of course we'll get those more middle class workers living here. They're still close to downtown, so they kind of higher property value but nicer apartments, just to kind of bring in the younger crowd. That's kind of the area that I'm living in now, in that sense. I kind of live in an area that we have this really mixed zoning going on. It doesn't quite make a whole lot of sense sometimes, and it can be a little weird, but I like it. It gives towns a little bit of a character to them. We got some more parking lots. I find the parking lots to be somewhat of a pain to work with sometimes. They're really great, but trying to get them really close together and big enough to be an accurate representation of the area, to be a little something you had to play around with a lot. I think that's true with a lot with City Skylines. It's a lot of trial and error. Trial and error. I don't know why I thought I said that wrong. Maybe I'm just tired. Who knows? We're also probably going to put like a little bit of a pool into this residential kind of section here in a bit. We're going to cap off the main street with kind of an older apartment building, just to kind of mix it up a little bit. And you want to try and align these structures so they look like they're part of the same building. Copy and paste after you do some prop it up on there. See, as this works as a little bit of a capstone to kind of separate out the downtown area from a little bit more of the suburbs that's behind it, right? So we're gonna have a parking lot behind the apartments, and then we're gonna fence this off and put some trees, foliage, just so that it doesn't look quite as jarring, right? So trees, bushes, and things can really help an area transition. And then also if you surround it with some more, maybe some more dense structures, but a little bit of a bigger residential. So we're gonna flank these apartments with duplexes. Just trying to find things that kind of fit and tell a little bit of a story. I don't know what kind of story half the time, really. I feel like I'm just grabbing buildings that look neat and plopping them down in random locations, and then be like, that's great, looks good. If it doesn't look good, I'll delete it later, and maybe we'll just turn it into a plot and put some trees and a fence around it and call it done. And that's just kind of how I go about building in this game. It feels unlike Planet Coaster, where I have kind of a very rigid building method of just, you know, gray boxing something out, looking at everything at once. This is a lot more trial and error for me. I think some people would probably enjoy that process a little bit more than I do, but you know, we do what we can. We do what we can here on the Uthris channel. I'm running out of air. Like, boy, talking non-stop. I have a feeling that, and I do want your guys' feedback in these videos and how well my commentary is doing and things like that. I don't know if I'm going a little bit too quickly in my narrative, right? The video is sped up quite a lot, as you guys can tell, probably, if you guys even make it to this section of the video. But if I'm talking too quickly and, you know, you guys just want to have a more chill, kind of chatty conversation, let me know. And, you know, we'll talk a little bit about what's on screen. But, you know, you guys know what we're doing. You guys are watching it. Look, I'm putting in some fence work between these duplex structures, trying to make it look a little bit separate from the apartment parking lot back there. Filling in some of these dead areas with some bushes and trees and greenery. It really helps ground things together, because a lot of this looks weird until you put in all the trees. Trees really help City Skylines a lot. I think they're probably the best asset in the game at this point. It's something that's really used to cover up and blend areas together. So keep that in mind when you're working on your own thing. Right now I'm running into a little bit of an issue. I have such kind of a nicer residential area right next to a grain factory and processing plants, which doesn't quite make too much sense. So we're gonna really wall this off with greenery. It's gonna dampen the noise as well. We're gonna put some of these small, what looks to be a little bit more 1950s single family homes together to make old kind of apartment style for some lower income families. We'll kind of wall this off as well, so that, you know, when these guys in these maybe newer-ish apartments look across the street, they do see residential. They don't just see the grain silo. It might just be back there a little ways, not so much in your face and screaming at you. But I do like the contrast. I like just the different zones playing together like this. Anyways, I think we're gonna end this episode here. If you guys enjoyed the video, definitely leave a like, subscribe for more creative goodness such as this, and I will see you in the next episode of Wheaton.